He ran a 4.46 at 221 freaking pounds, and he had an elite explosion grade. And now I think you'll see him in the first round of every mock draft going forward. The combine is in the books, and it's time to give you some updated Dynasty rookie rankings for the 2025 class. Historic testing day for the running back class. It's looking just as good as we thought it was. 4 important things to note. Can I have 2 minutes of your time before we dive into the rankings? This is important context. Okay, number 1, athletic testing only accounts for 10% of my final player grades. Number 2, if a player's RAS is incomplete, we use the closest comps in RAS's database as a projection. Number 3, if a player didn't test, their current RAS is projected by using my player comps. Number 4, player grades are not final. Things can change, and a lot of these guys have incomplete grades, and they will be, those grades will be more complete after their pro days where they're going to test a lot of these athletic measurements. All right. Before we dive in, a great question to ask is, how important is RAS or the combine to actual NFL success? Because you guys probably have spent the last 3 to 4 days and you're just all over Twitter seeing, oh, look at that RAS score. Look at that. Oh, that guy's bad. That guy's good. The comment section just has no idea what they're doing on Twitter trying to digest these RAS scores. Well, shout out to MathBomb, the creator of RAS, over on Twitter. He shared some research with us. He split athletic testing into 3 categories. Players who scored an 8 or above the 80th percentile, right? Players who scored 5 to 8 on the RAS score, so 50th percentile to 80th percentile, and players who scored it under a 5, all right, so under 50th percentile. Then he researched the last 20 years and he asked how many Pro Bowl starters ended up in each of these categories. Not alternatives, starters in the Pro Bowl only. And yes, he knows the Pro Bowl isn't perfect, right? Now, what I did is I took his data and I took the liberty of compiling only what matters for us here. The research from the quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends, and here are the results. All right, obviously the guys who test higher, that 8 to 10 mark there, you'll see a lot of greens. That's where the majority of the Pro Bowls came, starting Pro Bowl players in the last 24 years, by the way, since the year 2000. But you'll notice what stands out the most, to me at least, tight ends. The athletic testing of a tight end matters more than any position. Almost 78% of starting Pro Bowl tight ends had a score of 8 or better in the RAS system. That's what we've been preaching pretty much since we started this channel, that athletic testing matters more for the tight end position than any other position that we talk about on the channel. And you'll also notice that the most common outliers were found at wide receiver. That 5 to 8 RAS score, almost 34% of starting Pro Bowl wide receivers were in that category. So the most outliers, if you will, are found at that wide receiver position. All right, and obviously if you look at the all category, right, the better athletes are typically found as starting Pro Bowls. This information, by the way, will be added in V3 of our rookie report, which comes out in about 2 days. Okay, now here's my opinion. We're about to dive into the rankings, but here's my opinion on the whole combine. For the most part, I do believe it's a slightly overrated event. It's fun. It's a pajama Olympics. But here's the deal. Like, if a player tests poorly, it doesn't mean they won't have success in the NFL. For example, Kyren Williams, right? I loved him in that class with Ken Walker and all those guys. He came out and had a stinker. He fell down draft boards, but was still a good NFL player. Bucky Irving came out last year. We know how good he was this year. I mean, you even have players like Josh Jacobs, who despite having a 4.64 40-yard dash, was still selected in round 1 because of the film, because of the tape, because of the production. So maybe ease up on the Caleb Johnson stuff, some of you people out there. But ultimately, regardless of your opinion of the combine, here's why it does matter. The combine matters because it will impact draft capital, positively or negatively, right? Kyren Williams, Bucky Irving, those guys did fall down draft boards, but Josh Jacobs didn't. Most times it will impact draft capital, and draft capital ultimately is pretty much undefeated, and we use it often when we talk about rookie rankings after the NFL draft. And by the way, at the end of this video, I have a list of my biggest fallers and risers from the combine. Let's get into these rankings though. So at the top, nothing has changed. Ashton Jeanty is still there. He did not test. We'll see him at his pro day, but there's no reason to move on from Ashton Jeanty as my 101 in his own tier. He's an incredible player. Love the guy. But here's the deal. Before the combine, I had a huge tier from the 102 to the 107 of a bunch of different players. And now I believe someone has established themselves on their own. That is Amarion Hampton. He will be the only player that you see in this tier. I'm going to put his own tier for Omarion here, my second ranked player. And I understand if you're upset about that, but I believe he's almost locked into the first round considering his combine performance and what people were saying about him before the combine itself. I mean, you had multiple people, according to Tony Pauline, saying that they had Omarion Hampton as the top running back in the draft over Ashton Jeanty. Then he goes out at the combine and he puts up a 9.61 relative athletic score. He had a 4.46 40-yard dash, a 1.55 10-yard split. Oh, and by the way, he ran a 4.46 at 221 freaking pounds, and he had an elite explosion grade. The man dominated the combine. Of course, the shuttle not great, but no one's talking about Omarion Hampton's shiftiness, all right? No one's talking about his left to right movement, but after the combine, he dominates, and now I think you'll see him in the first round of every mock draft going forward. Now, if I believe he's going to be a first round pick, you have to think about the historical hit rates when we consider that factor, right? If you look at star status, that's just a top 24 points per game season, 86% of running backs in round one hit for fantasy football. But how about even further? How about superstar status? That is a top 12 points per game season. Well, round one running backs, by far the best bet to make in Dynasty rookie drafts, 79% almost hit rate in round one for running backs who have a top 12 points per game season. Ridiculous stuff. So again, if I'm believing, this is my opinion right now, things will change, right? Rankings will change. That Omarion Hampton is going to be a round one pick. He's going to be locked and loaded at the 102. Guys, I do not care what running back it is that goes in round one. If they go in round one, they will be ahead of all the wide receivers in my book. So you can disagree with me. That's completely fine. But Omarion Hampton has done enough to set himself aside for me. I think this is a juiced up James Conner, and I cannot wait to see what team decides to take him in the first round. Is it the Broncos? Do the Chargers do it? Do the Vikings do it? I'm not sure which team it could be, but I think he's pretty much a lock for round one after dominating the combine in the way that he did. All right, let's go to tier three. Now, tier three is a collection of all the players that used to be in tier two, who I had in the same tier with Omarion Hampton. And depending on how the NFL drafts goes, things could change. This is a big group of players that I absolutely love, right? Luther Burden, Tet McMillan, two wide receivers that I'm obsessed with. I don't care which way you lean. They're both great players. I've said this before, what do you prefer? I said, do you prefer toaster strudels or Pop-Tarts? And then people got on me and they said, you're kidding me, toaster strudels are goated. All right, well, what do you prefer? Do you prefer, vanilla ice cream or chocolate ice cream? All right? It's what is your flavor? Tell me what's your flavor. I love me some Luther Burden. I was backing him up before the combine. Then he comes out and tests exactly how I thought he was going to test. Had a 4.41 40-yard dash, which, is great in that composite speed grade, decent 10-yard split. And he did it at 6 foot, 206 pounds. If you look at the closest comparisons in RAS's database, you have names like Terry McLaurin and DJ Moore. DJ Moore is the comp that you will hear from everyone on every channel. I like to use a combination of Jackson Smith-Njigba and Rashee Rice as my comps, and Deebo Samuel as my comps, those two players. But I see the DJ Moore comps that a lot of people are throwing out there. I think he's a fantastic athlete. I'm not surprised that he wanted to test because he wanted to show people how athletic he truly is. Can't wait to see what he does at his pro day as well. But I do not see Luther Burden getting out of the first round after that type of performance at the combine. He tested very well. As for Tet McMillan, I'm not moving him down. There's no reason to. We didn't see him at the combine. We've seen plenty of wide receivers skip the combine, but we will have to wait for pro day for testing information. All right, at 5, 6, 7, we do have a little bit of a change of the guard here. Travion Henderson, nothing's changed there. My RB3, and he had a great day, by the way. Travion Henderson came in, weighed in at 202 pounds. So a little bit under what he was listed at Ohio State. I think he was listed at 212. He came in at 202. That shouldn't concern you anymore in today's NFL, especially with guys like Jahmyr Gibbs doing his thing. At 5'10", he ran a 4.43, 1.56 10-yard split. He had an elite explosion grade as well. He's got comps in the RIS database to names like Reggie Bush. He's just a fantastic player, and he tested well. There's no reason this guy is getting out of the second round of the NFL draft. I could see him slip into the first round, but after dominating the combine, he's definitely not getting out of the second round. I love the comps like the D'Angelo Williams, the Tiki Barbers, the Aaron Jones, the Tony Pollards. I'm a big fan of Travion Henderson. There's no reason to move him down your rankings, right? Now, here's where things switch up a little bit for me personally. Quinshon Judkins is the next player in my rankings. In this tier 3, my 6th ranked player. You can put him as high as 3. You could put him as low as 7 if you like. But you know, look, I'll hold my hands up. I did not think Quinshon Judkins was this level of athlete. And when I say this level of athlete, I mean a 9.9 RAS score. I mean 221 pounds, ran a 4.48, 157 10-yard split. Explosive grade was elite with that vertical and broad jump. I mean, look, I didn't think he was this type of athlete. I still kind of lean on the fact that I don't think the film shows a 9.9 RAS grade athlete, but the man went out there, he tested. What do these, numbers really mean to you when you got the pads on versus when you got the pads off? They don't play the game without the pads on, but the reality is my comp for Quinshon Judkins before the combine was David Montgomery. He's not a good comp anymore. David Montgomery didn't test anywhere near close to Quinshon Judkins here in 2025. So my new comp for Quinshon Judkins is Joe Mixon. And I have to offer a heartfelt apology to the people out there who already thought he was a Joe Mixon level athlete. I didn't see it on film, but after he goes out there and dominates the combine, there is not a single chance this man is getting out of the second round of the NFL draft. And that historically is an incredible bet to make, right? We're talking about a 71% hit rate for round 2 running backs as far as that star status. So Judkins, all props to him. I liked his film, man. I love this player. I mean, we had like our it factor at like an 8.6. We're a big fan of him. He's like a move the change type of guy, but I got to update my comp. It is more of a Joe Mixon than it is a David Montgomery at this point. Now, what we're not going to do is we are not going to allow Caleb Johnson to fall down our rankings because he ran a 4.57 40-yard dash. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. The amount of people out here who I'm seeing on Twitter commenting, well, that's not a good score. Caleb Johnson. It's all the people who already didn't like Caleb Johnson. They're seeing him run a 4.57, which, by the way, at 224 pounds is not a bad time. But it's all these people who already didn't like Caleb Johnson, and now they're victory lapping on Twitter because, he didn't get into the 4.4, so now he's not a good player. Ridiculous. All right, ridiculous. You're absolutely out of your mind if you think 4.57 isn't a more than okay, adequate number for a starting running back in the NFL. Please go tell me what James Conner did at the combine. Please go tell me what Josh Jacobs did at the combine. You are absolutely kidding yourself. The only reason I'm out on Caleb Johnson is if the NFL says they're out on Caleb Johnson. I think he's an incredible player. People do not understand what he meant to that Iowa offense. He completely carried them out of irrelevancy into like 28 points per game before the season, 15 points per game. And every single week, the defense knew we have to start Caleb Johnson, and still they stop Caleb Johnson. So no, I'm not going to move him down because he had a 4.57 40-yard dash. It's just that. Oh my gosh. Twitter is the worst place for information, guys. I promise you, get off of Twitter during the combine season. I know everyone sees these scores and they say, oh no, it's over. It's over. We have to move on. No, you don't. Stop overreacting. All right. But just before we get into tier number 4, I gotta let you know. If you want an in-depth breakdown of your team with customized trade targets, players to buy, sell, hold, then get your team playbook today by either becoming a yearly Mother Flocker member with the promo code LAND or by going directly to the Flock store, regardless of what promo code you're on. And if you want it done live, make sure you get the live tier. Those links are in the pinned comment. All right, so tier 4, honestly, nothing has really changed here in tier 4. Emeka Egbuka, still sitting there for me. Of course, if he goes higher than I anticipate him to, I'm happy to move him up a tier into that tier number 3 with those other names. I still love Emeka Egbuka. I think Robert Woods. I think Juju Smith-Schuster. I think he's an incredible player and a very safe floor. Probably the safest floor of anyone in this class. We don't have any combine information on him. Now, I have a huge problem with Twitter. You guys probably know this by now. I think Twitter is like the least helpful place for Dynasty players ever. I think even Reddit is better. Okay, so anyway, there's for some reason people are saying that they're using the combine as a reason to put Cam Ward ahead of Sanders now. Like, oh yeah, so because Sanders didn't throw at the combine, that means Ward is clearly going to be the quarterback 1 for me in my rankings. And then they found out, oh, Cam Ward's not throwing at the combine. Well, it doesn't really matter that much, but Cam Ward's still definitely quarterback one after the combine. No, whatever your opinion was of the quarterbacks before the combine, there shouldn't have been any change. There's not a single thing that these guys could have done at the combine that would have changed your opinion. It's not important for the quarterback position. So I'll still have Sanders and Ward back to back. Love both of these players. Sanders is safer. Your Tua, your Brock Purdy's, and Cam Ward is like the higher upside, like the Jordan Love type of pathway with the lower floor, like the Will Levis type of outcome. All right. And then we got the tight ends. And again, Colson Lovin has been my tight end one before the combine. I had Tyler Warren right behind him. I see no reason to change this right now. Colson Lovin I prefer from an athletic perspective, from a receiving profile perspective, from translating the athleticism as a receiver to the NFL. I think Tyler Warren's probably the better all-around tight end, but I think he's going to contribute in ways that might not help us in fantasy football, so a little bit more difficult to wrap your mind around. Okay, and the last player in this tier who did move up a little bit for me, that was Matthew Golden. He was already my wide receiver 5, but he was tied with another player as my wide receiver 5. So Golden lands here at 13th overall. He came into the combine, ran a 4.29, the best speed of anyone at the combine. You know, we were already team Matthew Golden before this. Then he comes out, he puts a 1.5 10-yard split, a 2.5 20-yard split, and a 4.29 overall 40-yard dash. We already know he was fast based off of film. I don't think people thought he was that fast, though. I mean, the reaction on Twitter, I kind of shot. I thought he was like 4.38. I did not think he was 4.29. I think this almost solidifies him in round 1. And if he ends up going round 1, he could be, you know, a locked and loaded first round pick in your dynasty rookie drafts. But the comps on RAS's site are like San Antonio Holmes, Henry Ruggs. You know, the San Antonio Holmes comp, I can't stop thinking about now. My comp before the combine was Brandon Cooks. I still think that's where I want to lean with him, like that Brandon Cooks guy who's just that number 2 that constantly puts up 1,000-yard seasons. But yeah, I think he had a fantastic day, and we should definitely give him his props. All right, into tier 5, Travis Hunter. No reason to change this. You'll notice it's a bit weird because he is my wide receiver 1C, but he's ranked at 14th overall. Why is he at 14 when Luther Burden and Ted McMillan are at 3? Well, I just don't know how to rank the guy. I don't know if he's going to play cornerback. I don't know if he's going to play wide receiver. And there's clearly some risk baked in there that, you know, no one can really decipher right now. And if they're telling you they know what he's going to be used at, they're lying to your face. Nobody knows right now exactly what his usage will be. So that's where he'll sit for me, baking in that sort of risk at the moment. If he was a full-time wide receiver, he'd be my locked and loaded 102 probably. That's how good I think he is. All right, we've got a run of running backs here, starting off with DJ Giddens. What a day from DJ Giddens. Y'all know we already loved us some DJ Giddens coming into the day. And I mean, the DJ Giddens hype train is taking off. It's your last chance to get a ticket on board. Had a 9.95 unofficial score on RAS, but at 212 pounds, 6 foot, he ran a 4.43, a 1.53 10-yard split. And that is more than adequate for the NFL. I mean, some people were questioning his speed. I didn't understand it based off the film. This guy comes out of Kansas State, averages well over 6 yards per carry, has a ton of production, almost 1,400 yards. Great film, make your man miss in the phone booth type of movement ability. The explosion grade is elite. He comes out, has an incredible combine. He's made himself some money, and I don't think he gets out of round 3 now after a performance like that. Huge fan of his game. Then we had Cam Scatterbo, who did not do the 40-yard dash. He did weigh in at 219, 5'9", sorry. Now, we didn't see his 40-yard dash. We'll see that, I'm sure, at the pro day that he'll put on. But he did have an elite explosion grade. That broad jump, that vertical jump is ridiculous. I mean, I don't think people saw that out of Cam Scatterbo on film. I didn't see that out of him on film. But, you know, I thought he was more of a David Montgomery type of guy. But that kind of explosion grade is very impressive. We'll see what he runs at the 40. And by the way, a guy like Cam Scatterbo, when he does his 40-yard dash, he'll probably end up being ahead of Giddens. It's just he has an incomplete score right now. And here is probably the biggest riser, a player that I already loved. In fact, you know, funnily enough, if you go back literally just 2 weeks ago, I brought a sleepers video. And we were talking about how much we love Bashul Tutin. We were talking about how this guy is constantly turning lemons into lemonade. He is, you know, constantly doing more with every touch. His missed tackles forced per attempt, his yards after contact per attempt. The man is doing more per touch than most running backs in this class. We loved us some Bashul Tutin. And then he comes out and he absolutely obliterates the combine. Like the highlight running back at the combine point blank period. Comes at 206 pounds. He runs a 4.32. That's like 99 percentile. A 1.49 10-yard split. Elite numbers. Then he comes out and has an incredible vertical and broad jump. I mean, across the board, the man tests as an elite athlete. We already loved his film. In fact, he would have been higher in my grades before the combine. The only wart on his profile is the fumbles. He has 7 fumbles in the past 2 years. So what I do think is that this testing locks him into round 3. That makes him my 17th overall player. But man, we got to find, an organization that is not concerned about the fumbles. People say it's an easy fix. It's an easy fix to fix the fumble issue. All right, then go ask Antonio Gibson how easy it was to fix it. All right, I don't think it's just an easy fix. You have to work on it. Now, my comp for Bashul Tutin before the draft was Jaylen Warren. Jaylen Warren didn't test anywhere near like that, baby. So the new comp is James Cook. All right, I think we got some James Cook with the scootin' tootin', baby. I love me some James Cook. I think it's a perfect comp for Bashul Tutin for what he can offer in NFL offense. And Jaylen Warren now becomes more your floor comp rather than your ceiling comp. We got 2 players to end this tier who didn't really do anything to hurt or improve their draft capital. Elijah Arroyo. We've also got Jackson Dart there. So Dart's getting a lot more love for round 1. If that happens, of course, we'll continue to move him up our rankings. All right, into tier 6. This is a big old tier and a bunch of guys who had pretty fantastic days at the combine. All right, we'll start with RJ Harvey, my 20th ranked player. Comes out at the combine, a little bit undersized, 205, but that's fine for the modern day NFL. Has a great 40 at 4.4, explosive grade is elite. He has a fantastic day, around an 8.6 RAS score unofficial. I love me some RJ Harvey. Huge fan of his game. I mean, this man is super creative. He's a great receiving threat out of UCF. He set records out of UCF. Former quarterback to running back convert. He's a great player, super efficient, incredible vision. I'm super excited to see him have a great score. All right. Then we saw my boy, Jalen Royals. All right. I love me some Jalen Royals. The combination of Rashee Rice and George Pickens all into one player. You know how much I love this guy. Was on track to have over 1,500 receiving yards before he went down with that injury in week 8. He's an incredible player on film, and then we got to see him come out at the combine and put up some damn numbers at 6 foot, 205 pounds. He ran a 4.42, a 1.49 10-yard split. That burst is there, okay? You see it off the line of scrimmage, and now we see it with the pads off, and more importantly, he can do it with the pads on. All right, DJ Moore is the official comp in RAS score, but I more see like a Rashee Rice and George Pickens mixed together type of player. Love me some Jalen Royals. Then we had Jack Besh, who didn't do the 40-yard dash. Now, he did everything else, though, and he tested really well. 214 pounds, and at 214 pounds, the 3-cone was good. The broad jump was good. Jack Besh isn't like some, dominating elite athlete. Puka Nacua wasn't some dominating elite athlete. These are just really good big body guys who move really well for their size. I love, Puka Nacua as a comp, a Puka Nacua light. Of course, I'm not saying he'll be as good as Puka Nacua. I also love the Robert Woods comp for a name like Jack Besh, but he definitely has 2nd round consideration now. And then we have the Iowa State boys. All right, Jalen Knoll and Jaden Higgins. I don't mind which way you rank them. I don't mind if you have them higher than Royals and Besh. I'm not going to be upset about that if they're your wide receiver 6. There's so much room for difference of opinion there, in my humble opinion. Y'all know I was team Jalen Knoll over Jaden Higgins, but they're pretty much in the same ranking for me. I don't mind which way you go. Jalen Knoll comes out, absolutely dominates the combine. 9.58 relative athletic score, the 4.39 40-yard dash, the 1.51 10-yard split, great agility grade, elite explosion grade, and he did it at 5'10", 194 pounds. Guys, that is not undersized. I think RAS needs to rethink this one a little bit. 5'10", 194, that's not an undersized wide receiver in the NFL. Go look at how big Garrett Wilson is, all right? This man can win inside, outside. He's got the versatility. I kept comping him to Josh Downs and Darnell Mooney. A combination of those 2 players, I still see it, but his teammate had just as good of a day. Jaden Higgins comes out there, 4.47 40-yard dash at 214 pounds. Now, the 10-yard split wasn't necessarily there, but that's not something you need to worry about unless it shows up on film. But you see Jaden Higgins. He's got that quick area, short area quickness. He's able to beat people off the line of scrimmage, and he's got that big body, that dominating hands type of frame. I'm a huge fan of his game. Can't help but see some Mike Williams there, but he had an incredible day, both the Iowa State boys, and then Trey Harris had a pretty good day himself. And this is the issue. People looked at Trey Harris's 40 time, it's a 4.54. And they're like, oh no. Hey, no, if you were Team Trey Harris before the combine, a 4.54 should not tell you he's not going to do well in the NFL. It's just ridiculous, okay? Good day overall from him. The vertical broad jump were definitely there. He showed to be a great athlete. Ticked all the boxes that you wanted him to. And then we're going to end this tier with 4 running backs that I love. 4 guys that have been really my guys, I guess you could say, in Brashard Smith, Devin Neal, Dylan Sampson, and Damian Martinez. Brashard Smith. See, this is where I have a little bit of a qualm with the RAS score. I think it's the best in what we have for athletic testing, but a guy like Brashard Smith comes out and runs a 4.39. I mean, that's exactly what we wanted to see from him. A 1.58 10-yard split, not bad at all. Super dynamic, super explosive guy on film, but he just gets completely tanked because of the size, right? His 194 pounds gets a 2 grade. And it's not that dissimilar to like Devon Achane. Now, Devon Achane ran a 4.32, right? So it's a little bit different, but undersized guys like Brashard Smith don't perform well in the RAS scores, but he had a great day. That's the thing. He still had a good day. I think he helped his draft capital. Devin Neal comes out there 4.58. If you were in on Devin Neal before the combine, you should not be out on him now. 4.58 is totally fine at 213 pounds. He had a good day himself, so you shouldn't be out on him. Dylan Sampson, we didn't get the testing information we really needed. Damian Martinez also had a very under-discussed day himself. He should be maybe a 3rd or 4th round pick. He's a great player, kind of like a Brian Robinson plus type of profile there. All right, into tier 7. Let's go a little bit quicker on this. Alec Ayo Manor had a great day athletically. Now, here's what I'll say. He did move up my rankings purely because of that 10% athletic grade that goes towards my player grades. That moved him up my rankings. I still think there are some concerns on film with the ball skills, the inconsistency with his ball skills, but he showed to be a great athlete. That's probably going to improve his draft capital. So for everybody out there who's an Alec stan, this was a good day for you. All right, Harold Fannin Jr. Not a bad day whatsoever. 4.71. It's not that far off what we saw Jatavion Sanders run last year. Will it hurt his draft capital? I don't know. I wasn't convinced he was a 2nd round pick before the combine. I think he's probably a 3rd round pick now. So that's kind of where I'm sitting on him at the moment. Jarquez Hunter right after that. Then Ollie Gordon, who had a fine day. Guys, you probably think I'm the biggest Ollie Gordon hater out there. And you probably expected me to come on today's video and say, Ollie Gordon ran a 4.61. See, I was right. Not a great player. No, of course not. Of course I'm not going to victory lap that. That's stupid. It was still a totally fine day. 4.61 at 226 pounds is a completely fine player. Now, did he dominate the combine? Was his explosion grade great? No. Did he have the agility testing there? No. But that doesn't mean that because he didn't run a fast 40, he's not going to be a good player in the NFL, right? That's ridiculous. All right, we got a run of quarterbacks and wide receivers here. Jalen Milroe, who I'm shocked that Milroe didn't test. I thought he would test really well and almost have like a mini Anthony Richardson type of build towards the draft, but we didn't see it, and I'm a little bit shocked. I think it was a really missed opportunity for him. Then we got a bunch of wide receivers here like Restrepo, Brooks, Savion Williams, Isaiah Bond. Isaiah Bond, who said he was going to break Xavier Worthy's record. I don't know why he set those expectations for himself. He had a great day. But because he told people he was going to break the all-time record, people think he had a bad day. He did it to himself. I can't really defend him there. Into tier number 8 and 9, we'll look at all these together. A couple names I want to highlight here, like Terrence Ferguson, for example, who really put himself on the map after today. Again, if you go back and look at those RAS scores, guys who test well for the tight end position is more important than any other position in Dynasty football, right? Almost 78% of Pro Bowl starting tight ends in the last 24 years had a 8 or above RAS score. So Terrence Ferguson in the 98th percentile, he dominated. He's actually moved up to my tight end 5 in this class. Raheem Sanders had one hell of a day. To run 4.46 and then to come in at 217 pounds. Guys, this was the problem with Raheem Sanders. He was at 240 at one time. To get down to 217, that's a much better weight for him. I love to see that. Unfortunately, we do have some fallers like, Jordan James. He's not falling a lot, but he just didn't help himself with testing. Torrey Horton had a great day. Ty Felton had a great day. Let's move on to Tej Johnson just really quick. Again, what did I say before? Because if you test poorly at the combine, it does not mean you won't be a good NFL player. but it might impact your draft capital. And that is my concern with Tej Johnson. My concern with Tej Johnson is not, oh, I don't think he can play in the NFL anymore. I do believe he can play in the NFL. My concern is, oh, I think he might have fallen a round or two, and draft capital historically is going to be tough to back up the Tej Johnson love. So instead of him being a 3rd round pick that I love to make, now he's probably going to be a 4th round pick that I love to make. So I don't think you should be completely out on Tej Johnson. Remember, Tank Dell ran a 4.49. Tej Johnson ran a 4.51. I know he's at 154 pounds, the lightest player to ever weigh in at the combine. So I understand the concerns. He will have to be an outlier, but I think his film is still very, very good. All right. Moderate expectations, but still very good film. We'll talk about a name like Kyle Monangai, who I was already very low on coming into this class, into the combine. I thought he could be like a contributor, but to have a 5.85 relative athletic score, it's just not going to help his draft stock. It doesn't mean he's going to be, screwed over by the NFL draft, but it's certainly not going to help his draft stock. And the last player we need to talk about here is Gunnar Helm. All right. Gunnar Helm, it was probably like that tight end day, the #1 tight end talked about because of how bad his combine was. But important context to note, Gunnar Helm actually twisted his ankle on his first false start on the 40-yard dash. And instead of being like, hey, I twisted my ankle, he's like, fuck it, I'm going to do the drills anyway. I'm going to still test. I'm going to still do the 40-yard dash, the, agility grade. So he did all of those, testing numbers with a sprained ankle. All right. So keep that in mind. I don't think we should be out on Gunnar Helm. I think that context is very, very important. All right. Now to finish off the video, I'm going to give you my biggest risers and fallers, just a graphic. All right. Of all these players. Biggest risers, Quinshon Judkins, one hell of a day. Same with DJ Giddens and Bashul Tootin. Names like RJ Harvey, Jalen Knoll, Higgins Ferguson. These guys had really good days to improve their draft capital. Matthew Golden, with that type of deep threat speed, he's probably going to be a 1st round pick. As far as biggest fallers, I love Tej Johnson. I'm still going to draft him in the 4th round of my rookie drafts, but he is going to have to be an outlier, so I have to recognize that historically. Names like Jordan James, Woody Marks, Kyle Monangai, it's not that they won't be good, but they didn't do anything to help their draft capital, unfortunately, by their athletic testing. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you guys here very soon. Nothing but love. Peace. If you're thinking about supporting us in this economy, that's big love, and you deserve love in return. So for every yearly Mother Flocker member who uses the promo code LAND, we're giving out a free team playbook, our 2025 rookie report, access to all premium tools, free site vouchers, and of course, a huge thank you from the LAND crew. You're far too kind. That's love.